Are you enjoying life? Let's find out. Come, let's discuss this topic. We have a neighbor. When we moved to the current town that we live in, she came to our house and she introduced herself, and she was 90 years old at that time. Delightful woman, still driving, taking her husband around places. Wonderful couple. Her husband died. Typically when that happens, people say, oh, she'll die soon, or the other spouse will die very soon, but no, not our neighbor. She's still going strong. She'll be 97 this September. And she remembers everything. She just called me a couple days ago, and I hadn't heard from her for months. And she was talking to me and asking me about the kids and my husband and the different activities the kids are involved in. She remembered everything about all the different conversations we've had. That's living life. She keeps going. She remembers everything. She stays sharp. She reads a lot. She's always engaged in conversation and doing things with people. And that's how life should be. Are you doing that?
Well, first of all, are they 97?
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't think many people watching this are 97. But hey, you get to that age. My goodness.
So what's your point with your story?
My point is, there are people who look at life and they're more worried about, you know what, I don't know if I'm promised tomorrow. I need to make sure that I get things done today because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So then they're always rushing through life instead of just being present in the moment and enjoying it.
What you're saying is enjoy every moment.
Yes.
Like we say, live in the now, or even the masters tell us that, right? Live in the now.
Yes.
We shouldn't be living in the past or worried about what happened in the past and bringing it with us.
Or worry about what's going to happen in the future. The future hasn't happened. You're creating it right now. Be in the now.
And that's what I'm talking about. That if
you
you're
said
bringing
worry about
something
the
from the
past.
past, it's because you're worried about the future.
Oh, I see.
Think about it.
I got it.
You know, if something happens, let's say for example, you're worried about you having a car accident, for example, right? Like I used to worry about, well, that would not be a good example because of a past life environment. But let's say for example, you're worried about getting into a car accident. And you're worried about it all the time, but why? Because you were in a car accident before. Then you're bringing your past into your present, which of course then you're creating something, you're building momentum to create that same scenario in the future.
Right.
And then you being the psychic that you are, you'll say, I knew it was going to happen, right? So that's what you're talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
So then you live in fear because they're like, oh, I'm afraid this will happen. Got it.
Indeed. That's exactly how it happens.
Okay.
It even happens with relationships. You know, a couple is together, all of a sudden they decide to separate and part ways, and then one of them might be worried all the time, oh, am I going to get into this situation again? Oh, how do I avoid it? And instead of just living and enjoying life and the people that are there, they're constantly worrying about if they're going to get into that same situation they were in before.
Well, I've seen that with people that, let's say for example, one individual cheats on the other individual. I hear people say that they cheat on their marriage. You can't cheat on a marriage. A marriage is not a person, right?
Right.
But you can cheat on, well, you could choose to do something that's disloyal to your partner. How about that, right?
Yes.
It's more like it. That happened, it happened once, or it happened maybe 10 times, whatever it is. And then the person, the other person then spends time always wondering if that partner is doing the same thing. So how can they really enjoy their relationship with this individual when they keep thinking about all this negative stuff that happened in the past? That's what you're talking about.
Right. How do you let those things go?
Well, do you really let them go? And maybe that's the challenge. Maybe people are trying to let them go.
Good point. Good point.
One of the things we learn in physics is what? Energy, or even in chemistry, that energy is neither created or destroyed. You can't create energy, you can't destroy. The same amount of energy that was here when the world was created is the same amount that's still here.
Okay.
However, it can change shape.
So you're saying we should be changing the energy then of what we're thinking about, the situation we're thinking about, in order to be able to enjoy life.
That's what the Ascended Masters teach us, right? Just like when someone says, I want to get rid of a habit. Let's say it's a bad habit, they consider it a bad habit, right? And maybe someone doesn't like smoking and they want to stop smoking. So what do they tell you? Get rid of it. Well, why would you get rid of it? It's an energy. Everything is a frequency. So instead of getting rid of smoking, what you do is you change the frequency to something that's beneficial. You don't get rid of it. That's the reason why you're going to have a challenge. Because you can't get rid of energy.
Okay, so then how do we start changing this energy for whatever situation it is?
The same way you do with anything else. If you want a cup of hot tea, what do?
I boil some water
Why?
because that's going to help with the process of making the tea.
So how much work do you put into that?
Not much.
That doesn't answer my question, though.
I don't put much effort. I just fill the pot with water and the stove does the rest.
See? Simple, right?
Uh-huh.
Then why do we think it's complicated to do the same thing in our life? You want hot tea, so you got the water that's not hot, you put it in the stove, you let the stove heat up, and then it boils the water. What's your stove?
It's a machine? A tool?
No, outside of the physical realm, what will be your machine? What will be your stove, you think? That's what's helping you to transform this energy, right? What would help you do that?
God?
Exactly.
Okay.
All right? Good guess, the way you're looking at it. I'm trying to give an
I'm
analogy,
trying to understand, right?
That's why our recordings are good, because it's not rehearsed. You understand?
Uh-huh.
But think about it. So here you are, you're taking something, put in the stove, because the stove is going to transform it into the energy you need.
Right.
Okay, you know you have energy that you're not happy with. So let's say, for example, you have this partner that you believe cheated on you, or whichever way you want to put it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so what do? Take that energy, which is what? The feeling that you have, the thoughts that you're thinking, and then put them on the stove. Imagine a pot, put all those feelings in there, right?
Uh-huh.
Turn the stove on, and then let the stove transform that into what?
And do something positive for you.
Which is trust.
Love.
Right? Love, unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And just imagine the steam that's coming off is exactly that. But who's doing it? The Ascended Masters, God. And you don't even have to think about that it's God or the Ascended Masters doing it. Just imagine that it's the stove doing it for you. It's the same stove.
Mm-hmm.
Just put it in there. It's just a visual.
It's the same thing for the person who might be afraid of constantly getting into an accident. They just put all those fears right into the pot and they let it boil off, and to protection.
That's
They're
right.
always protected and safe.
They see themselves, in this bubble, and they're protected. And even if the car happens to get hit, they're fine. They're safe.
Well, that would make it easier to live in the now instead of constantly thinking about what could happen.
If they do that.
If
But
they
how
do
many
that.
people actually do it is the question.
Indeed.
Right?
And do it often so that they can rid themselves of those negative thoughts.
Right. So now, let's give another example. We were at the store,
Uh-huh.
right? One of your suppliers. We went
Yes.
there, and then we saw this gentleman. You're in the checkout line, and the guy just comes and starts talking to us, right? Next thing I know, he's telling me how he's very happy he's outside because it's been 10 years since he's been outside, just having freedom to do whatever he wants. And so I asked him, well, why is that? Why haven't you come outside and enjoy the outside? He said, well, I just had a lung surgery. I've been having lung surgeries, like one after the other. Since I can't breathe, I have to stay inside. And he said, I've been outside 13 times in the last 10 years, but all of them were for doctor appointments. So now this is the first time I'm out at the store by myself, and it just feels good.
Wow.
Now see, but he didn't say, and if you notice, he even told, oh, I got this, he bought all this stuff. Unhealthy stuff, right?
Yes, yes.
Like 2 cards. And
There's a lot of
this is
food.
what I use, right? I'm gonna cook this. And
He gave us a lot of great cooking tips too.
that's true. But if you notice, he wasn't concerned about, well, what happens if I fall out tomorrow? What happens if I die tomorrow?
He wasn't.
He was enjoying himself, and he was just thinking about today. And that's the way we should live. You know, we shouldn't be bringing in the Bible, in the letter to Corinthians, Peter sent the letter to Corinthians, and in there he wrote, I die daily. That's what he wrote to them. And he wanted to make it clear to them that he died daily because, of course, they kept complaining about things that happened and they couldn't forget things that happened. You know, forgiveness, right?
Right.
And he's telling them, listen, when midnight comes, whatever happened before midnight, it's time to leave it back there. Okay, just leave it there. He didn't say forget about it. See? People say, oh, you have to forgive and forget. No, it's hard to forget. And don't pretend like you forgot. It's okay not to forget. All you have to do is remember to change that frequency to something beneficial. So when you think about it, you don't get angry, that those negative feelings are not there.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
Okay, so I don't know if that helps you with what you're thinking with this whole thing here.
Right, it was
Right.
really just, comments that have come up of individuals who are, it sounds like they're in a hurry to get things done in life because they know tomorrow is not promised to them.
Well, they don't know that.
Well, that's what they say.
Oh, I see. Well, then that's
And
another
that's in
mistake.
a lot of songs too, we're not promised tomorrow. It's like, well,
We are promised tomorrow. God told us that He gave us dominion over everything on earth. That includes ourselves. And we choose when we die. You know that, right?
oh, I know that
We
because of
decide
my
that.
dad.
Okay. We
My
saw
dad is
that.
a great example.
So now there might be an accident that happens, you get shot, but then you chose that anyway before you came here. So there's nothing, unless if you decide to change it. But again, it's still your choice.
Right.
So if there's anyone out there worried about that, they should think about the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot
Sodom
and his
and
wife.
Gomorrah?
Right. Right? The
Uh-huh.
angels told them, don't look back.
Right.
Okay? You're leaving everything behind. Don't look back. You're going to start fresh. What did she do? Hard-headed woman. Elvis Presley sang about her for sure.
She looked behind.
She looked back. And what happened?
She turned to a pillar of salt.
People should think about that. It's not very productive for you to keep looking back. Then it's even worse when you bring what you've experienced in the past into your current life, like what's going on today. It's not productive unless if you bring it because it's a learning experience and you're using it in a positive way.
Because you've changed that frequency. Right?
No, you don't have to change the frequency. The
I was trying to go back
could-
to what you talked about earlier.
No, the frequency could be the same.
Uh-huh.
All right, but now you're in the process of changing it because what you're doing, you're able to take it and choose to use it in a positive way, which at that point you're changing the frequency.
Got
So
it.
see, you might still feel kind of negative about it. You're like, okay, I learned from that though. So going forward, this is what I'm going to do. Instead of looking at it this way, this is the way I choose to look at it now. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how we should live. And again, the Ascended Masters, all the Ascended Masters teach us that. Jesus says, and I know people will get upset when I say this, some people will, but I hope they understand that I'm just quoting what one of the Ascended Masters say, one of the most popular ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe not the most popular, but for Christians, he's the most popular.
Right.
Because if you talk to Muslims, they'll say
It's
Muhammad
Muhammad.
is the most popular. If you talk to the Buddhists,
It's Buddha.
is more popular, right? So it all depends on who you're talking to. Anyway, but he said what? Let the dead bury the dead. Why do you think he would say that?
That's a good question. I don't recall that.
Well, anything that's in the past is already dead.
Okay.
So why bring it with you? The only reason why you'll do that is because you consider yourself dead as well.
Oh.
All right? That's what that means, or that's one interpretation of that. People think it means, well, let the dead person bury the other dead person. Well, how's he going to do that? The person's dead. They can't bury
Right.
it. Exactly. So that doesn't fit. It's all about you choosing whether or not you're going to hang on to the past and allow that past, which is already dead because it's the past, to kill you. So the dead, which is the past, is going to bury you because you're not dead yet. So if it's,
Yes.
and then once you're dead, it's because you allowed the past to do that to you. Instead, what you do is you look at the past and use it as a catalyst for you to live an even more enjoyable life. You know, how can you make that happen? And that's the key. It's looking at it saying, okay, I'm moving forward. That was a great learning experience, but now I'm using what I learned to move forward here to have a much better life. And if you do that, then of course you're living in the now. But what other examples do you have of that? Do you have any other examples? I know you know a lot of examples for this stuff.
I know.
You don't know of them right now?
Not off the top of my head.
Ah, okay.
Right.
Well, you were just having, I know with us, we had a challenge, for example, with many individuals when we took over the soccer program here. And we would get phone calls from the athletic director, right, telling us, well, this is what was reported. But of course, he wouldn't tell me who they were,
Right.
but I could tell who they were. Just not from the spiritual realm, I didn't have to do that, because just from the complaint itself, because we know who was involved.
Right, right.
But if you notice, as time went by, even though we know who would launch those complaints, and they were all inaccurate, and they were proven inaccurate, of course, that when we dealt with those individuals again, we always dealt with them in a positive way. And you're good at that. And I say you because you're the one that dealt with almost everybody. I don't really deal with
Right.
the parents at all. So you have applied that theory of, or that approach of, I die daily when it comes to that scenario. Because we could have been mean to them as well and kicked the kids off the team and things like that. But we didn't do that.
Right.
And to this day, they don't know that we know that it's them that launched those complaints. Now they'll probably know because they watch this video, if they do watch this
If
video.
they watch this video.
They'll be like, oh, they knew this whole time. But we don't take it in any negative way. You know, it's just more like, why did you just come to us?
Right.
And we always ask that question, right? The athletic director, why don't you just tell them to come to us? He said, well, that's not how we do it. I said, well, then maybe you should start doing that.
Right.
Yeah, we're more
Could have
than
been handled
open.
right away.
Exactly. So I'm more than open to hearing what they have to say and then we fix it. So that's another example of how you can live in the now, where you might be accused of things or people will tell you things that you know are not accurate, but you don't take it in a negative fashion. You look at it and say, okay, why would they do that? What's going on with them for them to feel that they need to do that? You know?
Right.
It's not you being attacked. It's not you being persecuted. There's something going on with those individuals to make them feel that they should do what they did. And the only question is, what is it? And you might never get the answer, but from what we've seen, it might take a year or two, but we always get the answer. It comes up somehow, right?
Right.
Without us searching. So people should be rest assured that if that ever comes up, they will get the answer. Just have to be patient and just keep
Yes.
living their life.
Indeed.
And not feel like victims or being persecuted or someone hates them. It's not like that. Whenever you do that, you're not living you're living in the past. You're bringing it with you. You're not living in the now.
That's a good point about, not being a victim. A lot of people choose to be victims and say, oh, this happened to me, instead of just saying, you know what, that's a learning experience. It happened. Let me move on, because life is different. Every day is different. I make it different.
Have you heard people say, like, how do you say, oh, today is such a special day?
Yes, people say that.
And my response is always what?
Why is today more special than any other day?
Exactly. Now, why do I ask that question?
To really get them to think about what's going on and why they'd say it'd be the most special day, because no day is really different than any other day.
But why is no day different than the other day? Because how could you say that when maybe, for example, 9/11, if you talk to somebody, that was a really bad day. But how could that be this at the same level as the day before, when everything seemed fine before the attack?
Yeah, so why do you say that, hon? Because I don't know when you bring up that example.
Get it?
I mean-
because each day is made by God. God will never make one day better than the other. Why would he do that? God is a loving and fair God.
But what happens during the day?
That's because of people's choices. That doesn't change the day. It changes the events that take place in the day.
So the day never changes.
The day doesn't change.
It's the events that take
That's
place.
correct. And then your perception of those events is how you start to put a label on days.
Or
and what happens on
importance.
different days. Exactly. Does that make sense?
Yes,
So-
yes. That
so-
makes even more sense. Even when we talk about like what we call Hallmark holidays. Which
They are Hallmark holidays. And
I
they're
know.
worse. We just talked to your kids about that.
Yes,
Now,
there's
there-
so many
all
of
the
them.
days and this month and that month and all kinds of nonsense. And people buy into it.
Right.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, really, every day is special because it's a gift from God.
It's not
But
even a
we-
gift from God.
We get to co-create and make it whatever we want. So the events that
But
take
here's the thing
place.
again. You say it's a gift from God. That's not true. It's not a gift from God. God already gave us that. It's not a gift. God already told us that everything we need is already there for us. How is it a gift?
That's a good point. I was just using a phrase that I hear a lot of people say, every day is a gift from God.
That's why I'm pointing it out to you.
I got
because
it.
that's what we do. A lot of us just go and follow what other people say.
I still do it, guys.
Got it? But God already told us that anything that we feel, we desire, we already have. So that God gave us all those gifts, God gave us all those blessings. Get it? No. He gave us that because we deserve it. We're His children. That's why every day is the same. And it's not a boring saying. It's a fantastic saying because it comes from God. Every day is very special. But then within that day, we're going to make choices. And then based on those choices and how we attach emotions to those choices, then we say, oh, this one is more special than that one. But it's because we attach emotion to it.
It's because of how we see it
That's correct.
and experience it.
That's correct. Like I always said, if I were married to anybody else besides you, I would have been, they would have divorced me a long time ago. Because I don't remember our anniversary, I don't remember your birthday, I don't remember my own birthday, I don't remember our kids' birthdays. I don't remember any of that because I don't focus on it. I'm busy doing other things. Who's going to put up with that?
I don't think many, at least not many Americans that I know would do that.
I don't think.
In fact, I can't think of anyone
Right,
who would
because
do that.
they've been programmed that those things are very special.
Right, right.
And so that their feelings would be hurt, and oh, you don't love me, and okay, really? All right. Anyway.
Well, I hope you get the point of how to be able to enjoy life and understand how you are the one that makes each day what it is. Remember to subscribe and like this video. Join the Facebook group 190 Vision to connect with others on the same journey. Get help by visiting our website 190vision.com. Support the 190 Vision mission by clicking on the donate button, which is at the bottom of each page of our website.